Okay, today we're looking at timing of shot, and that means the time of when the ball was struck after the first bounce or just prior to the second bounce or whatever. I've got two sets of diagrams, one on each side, one for backhand and one for forehand shots. Both players, the results will be put on either forehand or backhand side, so it's not let's pitting one person against the other. It's merely where each of the shots are taken in context to the bounce of the hit and so on. Now, what you'll see mostly is that most of the shots at backcourt will be taken just before the second bounce, except for that one there, because basically what I've done is almost any shot that hits the back wall, I've basically called that the backcourt shots. The mid-court shots go all the way to the back of the service box. Now, I've done that deliberately because guys are so powerful and strong off their back leg. They come back and they just jag a ball, which is like, that one's actually a backcourt one there. I've just given that one a backcourt one because it was so deep. But otherwise, if it's virtually three-quarter, which is like that one is, I've gone mid-court on those just so you understand what's going on. Okay, now the plan of this, or the aim of this, is for you guys to understand just where you should be trying to work toward getting enough muscle strength to be able to do this sort of method of play. In other words, the attacking method of play, which is taking the ball that little bit earlier all the time. We'll talk a little bit about it once we finish this rally, about the best options and the best way to go and the outcomes that we can learn from this rally. I chose this rally because it's quite a good rally, nice long rally, and there's a fair bit of driving down the walls on both forehand and backhand, where it's quite aggressive and quite attacking and so on as well. You see they relax a little bit when the ball comes off the back wall because they've got just that much more time, and most of those shots are about just changing position. As soon as they get in a position in the middle, they start to attack and more cross courts come into it because they can attack shots and take the time away from their opponent. If it's got width, it goes down the wall and volley wherever possible. Now, there hasn't been that many volleys on the forehand side, which is a bit strange, and there's a reason for that. And that's because guys are really high quality in that area, really dynamic, and so they develop game plans where they don't put their opponent in that position too often, as in forehand volley, because it's just such a powerful area, unless they're high lob and so on, because it's really hard to volley. But they won't allow your opponent to actually volley at the service box, because it's just too many options with a forehand, like this one here, bang. That generally, Rami would love to put that away, and normally would put that away as well. So it's just what he does. So if we take a look at the result of this shot, this rally, and we see what we've got. So if we talk about our backhand shots through here, and this is a front court, our mid court, and our back court. Now, as I said, all the back court ones were mostly I've taken off the back wall, so therefore that's why they're mostly just before the second bounce. So here's the first bounce, the ball comes over, and this is the second bounce here, so just before the second bounce. Now, that's because when the ball comes off the back wall, if you take it just before the second bounce, it obviously comes out further, which gives you more shot options and so on. So one little jag one was just right next to the back wall, so that's why I put that in there. On the forehand side, once again, just before the second bounce, to give yourself options, so you can really have choices when you actually play this shot. It comes away further, gives a bit of swing, you can even put the ball cross court and so on. If we look at the front court, now this is really interesting. There weren't many boasts played in this rally, and boasts, what would happen is, if you got boasts, a lot of boasts played, you get a lot more up here. In other words, attacking off a boast which is maybe not hit perfectly or really well. So generally up in this area here will be attack off a boast. In other words, you try and take the ball early and on the rise and so on. There weren't many boasts played. Most of the drops were off volleys and so on, and so therefore a lot of these shots are taken when they're comfortable, because they're covering volleys and so on. They're covering mostly, which is a driving rally. This is the start of the fourth game, this match, where that's this rally that we took. So they're still fresh enough, but still had a fair bit of work in them. So that means that they're taking the ball a little bit later at the front, just covering mostly, looking for volley winners and so on. And because it's not a short rally, as in short game rally, there hasn't been too many really attacking shots. Most short shots, strange enough, are taken just before second bounce. And that's because they get real good control and they aim for quality of drop rather than absolute dead winner, which means they put the ball on the wall rather than trying to hit the ball into the nick and so on. So there's your drops just before second bounce. So mostly if you train to take your drops just before second bounce, you'll find that's pretty good. Here's the interesting bit, the mid-court stuff. We've got backhand and we've got forehand. Okay, so the backhand mid-court, these are all volleys, of course. And there's a couple of volleys there. So these volleys, they choose to volley wherever they possibly can. And the guys are really, really good at it because of the dynamic movement. So if you're finding you want to volley more, it's not your volley. You have to practice your volley, yes you do, but the most important thing is practicing your movement to the volley, because then it'll put you in the position to be able to volley. Anyone can volley if they've got the movement right, but it's the movement which is the hard bit. So it's the preparation as you shuffle across the court off your back foot, generally in this one, not always, but generally, and because it's a faster movement on your back foot. Let's talk about these ones here. Okay, so there's two little clusters, if you like. There's the cluster where it's just before the second bounce. These are sort of like the recovery ones where the ball's gotten behind your body line and they're just jagging it down behind their body, behind the back down the wall, behind their body. So what that does is they're not the attacking ones, they're more or less the recovery ones. These are the ones they love. These are the ones they really strive to train to work towards getting. Now the earlier the better, because basically it's harder for you to hit it, but it takes your opponent's time away. So what happens is these shots are very, very quick and very aggressive in body structure and body frame. You find that in the backhand area, this has been one of the biggest advancements in squash over the last 5 years or so, is the back foot cut down on the ball, taking the ball really early on the rise before it gets into the back corner, and that's allowed an aggressive hit, but it's often not 100% power hit. It's about like a 60% power hit, maybe 70, and so you get the benefit of taking the time away, and that's what this video is all about. So this is what I wanted to see, which was this cluster here of these balls taken early. Now they're not all taken on the rise. A lot of people say, oh, you take the ball at the top of the bounce, top of the bounce, top of the bounce, top of the bounce. But what happens is, if you can take it earlier, you're even better. And so the guys now, where they used to be taught to take it at the top of the bounce, are now taking it earlier and earlier and earlier and earlier and earlier. And so wherever possible, if you have the body position, you take the ball earlier. And the answer for that, by the way, if you're going to take the ball really early, is to swing slower. So you need to use punch muscles, control core muscles and so on, but swing really strong but really short and slow, and therefore you get the outcome you want from the power. Now the forehand, almost the same. In other words, right in the middle here, at point of impact, that's where people are generally taught to take it, but you can work your bracket down to the floor against a rising ball, so they try and take it just in front of so it's definitely on the way up when you strike the ball, not on the way down. On the way down is okay, but that just means you've just you've had to use a little bit more time before you actually strike the ball. And there's one or two volleys in there as well. So from this video we're talking about the timing of the shots. What we basically wanted to learn was, obviously you take the ball last minute at the back of the court. You take the ball, depending on the position, and if you could take it earlier you would, but generally they wait till last minute, take the ball and work on the movement and look for the volley off the next shot. And they can hurt people more by taking the time on the drop, making sure it's a really high quality drop with your ball on the wall when your opponent wants to hit it, and then the volley becomes the next one that does the job, not the actual drop shot. And this is where it's at, in the center. Take the ball prior to top of bounce rather than on top of bounce. So if you can get it before top of bounce, it allows you to push your racket down to the floor, open the racket face, which pushes the ball deep, and you'll get the answers you're after. So that's hopefully you'll learn a little bit about this, and it's about the relentless number of shots. This is where they train mostly, these guys. They train through here to try and get that motion extremely efficient and extremely good. These are just general, basically it's change position shots. I'm in the back, now I'm going to put you in the back. So this is generally what happens through here. But here, these are the aggressive attacking shots which set everything up, and that's why they train in this area, to get this right. So get really, really proficient at that center court area. When I talk center court, that's not just the service box here, we're talking back an extra step as well. So I'm talking right back through to here, which is virtually 3/4 court. You need to be really, really strong at, and really, really capable. So if you can get hold of that, it'll actually make a dynamic difference to your game. It'll be phenomenal. So get really good taking the ball before the height of the first bounce, and then you'll be awesome. There you go. Hope this helps.